There's so many situations where, everybody's got a guy, right? And for me to be able to be that guy for people, that they can reach me on my cell phone and say, hey, this irrigation line's broken or this, and to drop what we're doing and come out as quickly as possible. It feels so good to be there for people like that.
You're listening to the Good for Business podcast, where we feature interviews, tips, and tricks from owners, operators, and innovators throughout Mississippi and around the world. And now, your host, Colin Krieger. Hey, welcome to this week's show. My guest is one of my oldest friends in Columbus, Mississippi, Clay Bowen, operator of BW Landscapes. Is that official title?
That's correct.
And
yep.
Columnist to the stars. Clay has had a column in the Commercial Dispatch here now for 6 months, maybe? June?
May.
June.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How's the column been going? That's more interesting. I know the professional horticultural and landscaping aspect will come up. But,
and it's so exciting, but yeah.
But hey, there's leaves outside. There is stuff to talk about.
Right.
So he's got a weekly column that's in the paper. It's been doing pretty good.
Yeah. It's actually gotten way more feedback than I thought. It's going well. I just started it, honestly. Just reached out to Peter and said, hey, I kind of read some of your content, and I was wondering if I could add something in there. And I didn't really know what direction to go because Felder's already covering the horticulture end. You've got some other folks writing about, cooking and whatnot, which was my other career. So I didn't know where to go with it, really, but Peter said, just send me something. I did. And next thing you know, I was contacted by Abigail, who was then the editor, and she said, I really like this. And they put it in the paper close to Mother's Day, I believe. And after that, it was, can you do more? So it just kind of went from there.
Well, no, I think it's went well, and obviously they're trying to fill space in the paper too, but at least it's something local.
That's right.
So they've had some departures. The old Sid Salter pulled his column, and they had some. I'd rather see your stuff than sort of the generic or, I call it hit and miss political type stuff, or walking through a field, everything's sunny in the South columns that come from statewide people.
Yes.
It's always been my contention. It was my contention. It was at the pack. It was to fill everything with, even if it's from somebody local, just anything local. That's why we did the B section of the packet, which was just pictures of kids playing baseball and stuff.
Right.
And your column came out, and it's, you've had some deep, serious conversations about not drinking alcohol anymore, and you've had a couple cool columns about. Why don't we talk about that real quick? We're not going to go through your whole life story.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the start. You did 12 years in food service as a chef. Is that right?
So yeah, up at went to Ole Miss. I say went to Ole Miss. I enrolled there, joined a fraternity, found myself partying a little more than studying, and ended up, and I say this quite frankly, I used to be embarrassed to say I dropped out of college. I used to think, oh gosh, what an embarrassing thing to say, because I feel like nowadays we put such emphasis on, oh, you'll only succeed if you have this or that degree or so on and so forth. But I realized even a guy, and I've written about it in my column, even a guy like me managed to somehow find success somewhat, I guess is what I'd call it. And so I just quite frankly say, I dropped out of college and started working at City Grocery with John Currents up there, and was washing dishes, went on to prep cook, went on to sous chef, worked my way all the way up the ranks. I'll kind of speed it forward, went out to California, Santa Barbara, California, followed a girl out there, and ended up cooking at a private club there as a sous chef. And I was watching, I guess we'll cover the Top Chef part, or we got to talk about it. Yeah. So was a big fan of the show Top Chef on Bravo, and was watching it, season 2, and I said, hey, I think I could do that. And I went to L.A., went through the tryouts, stood in line like you see on American Idol and whatever. But the difference is they actually check you out and see if you can cook. You got to provide references, and it's not just how dramatic can you be. It wasn't Hell's Kitchen. We'll put it like that. Did the show. First guy kicked off. Another, thing in my life that for a while there I was kind of ashamed of, but I'm not any longer. I was proud that I did that. It was a big deal. It was.
Well, I think it's a big deal. It's sort of, I reference this a lot in town here. Barbara Bigelow was Dallas Cowboys cheerleader.
Yeah, that's right.
And,
that's right.
Isabella Powell, who's with Golden Triangle Theater, was Miss University of Alabama. And I didn't know that about her for like a year. And I'm like, I would just open up with that everywhere I went. And like, if you're on the grill or I'm eating your house and you're like, yeah, I was on Top Chef.
Right.
Yeah. And so like whether you finish, like if you played in the NFL, you played in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's kind of aged out now though. So when you tell like my kids' generations, they're like, what? They don't know. 'Cause to me, it feels like it was yesterday. And I mean, it was what, 20, I can't even remember how many years, but over a decade, back. Yeah. So, anyway, came back here, did a chef job with the country club when it was the country club. It was really, actually I went to New Orleans, your stomping grounds after California, worked for John Besh down there for a little bit. Yeah. And then, came back here, was planning on not staying long and ended up meeting my wife, Shannon, of 16 years. And here I sit. So,
there you go.
Yeah. So, she had a way of keeping me around, I guess. that pretty face of hers, I couldn't resist. Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I met. Well, I'd actually known John Currents a little, so I met him our first week in Oxford. I moved up here after Katrina, lived here a year and a half, lived in Oxford for a little over 2 years. And the first week I'm in Oxford, no joke. First stop, we stop at Kroger. We see, what's her name? Is it Joey? Not Joey Lauren Adams. Is it?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
she lived there.
That's right.
Actually, I saw her, and at that time she wasn't real healthy, but she was. Right. I saw her in Kroger, and I'm like, "What the heck is this?" Sort of thinking like, "Oh, she looks a little rough." Right. And then my wife's like, "That's Joey." I'm like, "Cool." Next day, we see Eli Manning just walking around. Yeah. It was like in the spring, and I'm like, "Well, at least with Eli, I was like." He was literally in the square and nobody's there. And I'm like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I was like, so I know your brother, blah, blah, because his brother, Peyton Manning and I are a week apart from each other. So you run into each other.
Right.
So and then we go to City Grocery that night, and Grisham's sitting there eating dinner on the only other table next to us, like on a Wednesday night. And John Kearns comes up, and my wife's just staring. She's like, look. And I look over, and I'm like, I know him. She's like, you don't know him. I'm like, I know him. I'm like, John, right? And she's like, she's talking about Grisham. I'm talking about and that shows a cook or a restaurant guy's perspective is that I saw John Kearns, and I'm like,
that's
used to work at Miss May's back in New Orleans. I said I used to work at Roost Chris, and we deliver to trade food back and forth. Yeah. And he's like, you were a little bitty chubby kid. I'm like, well, I'm still kind of chubby, but yeah, but like, and he's like, do you know John? I'm like, oh, like you're the writer guy.
That John. Yeah, that guy.
And then this was, I don't know, I guess if this was 2008, I mean, Beard Awards were already sniffing around John Kearns and stuff.
Yeah. He may have, that was right around the time.
Yeah. Because you had, is it not Vikram? Who ran Boo-Ray or started?
Vish.
That's,
And I worked with those guys. Worked under Vish for a long time. Learned a lot from him.
Yeah, I was telling us. So my stepfather was a chef. He actually is from Poughkeepsie, New York, taught at the Culinary Institute there. And I remember this was probably maybe 2002 or 3, like before social media. You'd call your cook friends. You'd be like, you see Emerald last night? Emerald just got awarded 2 Michelin stars last night in New Orleans, which was pretty cool.
Really?
I think he's been shooting for that for a while.
Interesting.
But we were, I think I shared this story with John once because we would trade pizzas for food. So at Papa John's when I was up there. But I was telling him the story about my stepfather, and I'm like, I called him on a Sunday night, and Julia Child was on Emerald's show. Like Emerald had Cooking Live or whatever, and they made all this food, and at the end, they're going to make hamburgers. And he's got like 40 neatly cleaned up ramekins full of like all these spices from around the world, because that was always the rub on Emerald. He's like, we're going to make some shepherd's pie, and he'd have like meat and lamb and mashed potatoes, and then he'd have like the hair of a yak from the thing of the Himalayas. They don't sell that. They don't sell that at Kroger.
Right.
And he's with Julia Child, and Julia Child's like, oh no, she's like, don't mess it up with all that, just salt and pepper, blah. You're trying too hard.
That's a good Julia Child, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working on that. And then I remember Emerald, and me and my stepfather called each other immediately. He's like, did you see that look in his eye? Like, he looked at her like, 6 months later, you go forward, his next book comes out. He revamped the menus at all of his restaurants, simplified them. He's like, if we can't do it in 8 ingredients or less, we're not doing it.
Wow.
And like he wrote about it that same moment. And it's funny because now I've looked back on it. I'm like, as a cook and my stepfather's chef, we looked at it and be like, he got it.
Yeah.
Like he got it. Like the same way I've talked to John Bean and Doug at Zachary's and other restaurateurs. We're like, you got a new guy, and if he jumps on the fry station and just gets it, maybe he's never done it before, but he's like, oh, the chicken's floating, it's cooked.
Right.
You're like, all right, we just saved 4 months of training.
That's right. No
more
really.
videos.
No,
and stuff.
really.
And
yeah, that's correct.
that must have been great for you to get to study under Currents and Besh and in California too, to see those different approaches to it. Too.
Oh, it was. Currents he was on a different level, and I think when I worked there, he knew. The rest of us kind of knew, but we weren't sure which way it was going. I mean, you didn't even have snack bar wasn't open yet, and Big Bad Breakfast was about to open as I headed out to California. I kind of kicked myself over that one because he tried to talk me into staying, and I didn't. I left anyway. But, you know, and I write about it a lot in my column, actually, about I try not to look at life like that, though, as, oh, boy, if I'd done this or if I'd done that, because I didn't. But things are pretty great right now. So, you know, plus back to that partying part of my life. I think if I'd stayed in the chef world, I don't know where I'd be right now. It's a very rock and roll lifestyle, so to speak.
Well, yeah, and you know, I explained to somebody, talking about my kids were joking with me. They're like, you know, Dad, you never liked it. You would take us to Halloween, but you never dressed up. You never got into it. We don't decorate the house or all that. And now you're doing Golden Triangle Theater and going on TV and dressing up like a jackass and stuff. And I said, part of it may be the parents divorcing during my formative years, but I think from the age of 12, I worked at La Casa del Sol Mexican restaurant, and I worked in restaurants in New Orleans. And when I'm saying, like, you could have, if I had gotten off at 1 o'clock in the morning on Halloween night in New Orleans, you could still go and party all night. Yeah. But I worked till 3 or 4 in the morning every Halloween, every holiday night, every Friday night. Not kind of some Fridays, not sort of whenever. I didn't have a Friday night off until I owned a restaurant.
Right.
You know, from the age of 12 or 13 to 25 years old.
Yeah.
And so, like, there was a bit of spite for New Year's Eve and a bit of spite for Halloween because, like, and I was front of house and back of house, which is rare. Most people gravitate. They're going to be a manager and they're front of house, or they're just a back of house hooligan causing problems. Because my stepfather had that touch of both. You know, he worked at some high-end, small enough places where you were doing everything.
Right.
And so I thought, I was like, you know, I really looked back on it, like meditated, like that was part of, it's not a disdain for Halloween, but like, you know, I almost feel like I still have to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you mean.
And
that's the biggest benefit of somehow escaping food service.
It really is.
You know,
you get your life back.
Yeah.
I mean, you really do.
Yeah, I thought I was kind of taking it easy when I was running the packet and chasing criminals 24 hours a day.
Right.
Because I'd still have 4 hours off on Friday night.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was no weeds or anything.
Or home for the holidays. You know?
And it's such a big benefit. Now, the only time that's not fun to be around me is Thanksgiving, because, like, I have to stagger the turkey and the ham, and everything's got to come out at the same time. Right. And when somebody's late with something else or doesn't show up, I'm like, everything came out. Like, I've got one oven, I've got 7 things coming out at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm like, eat it now.
Right.
No casuals sit out here for 6 hours and wait. And, you know, I like to say this, the Seinfeld line, being able to sense the slightest bit of pain in someone else is one of my gifts. You know, and they're like, what are you feeling right now?
Yeah, when he says, you sensing anything right now?
I
love
and that's
that.
a gift from the restaurant world, is knowing whose fault it is.
Yeah.
Knowing if you have a bad waiter or, you know, they're just behind in the kitchen.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that, because I've got a column written that I just had it. I write, believe it or not, with my real job, and then doing that, the deadline can sneak up quickly.
Yeah.
You know, as far as when I turn them in. So I always keep a couple in my back pocket that I just write really, really quickly, and they're not edited, but I got them just in case. And one of them was actually about because our oldest son, Colton, and then our youngest, Landon, have both worked in the food industry. Landon did this summer at Little Dewey's, and Colton works at Taste over in Starkville, both serving. And it was neat to hear them, and still is from Colton, hear them talk about the dynamics of a restaurant. And what I wrote about was, it's not always your server's fault. People don't really realize that, right?
Yeah.
And the easiest person to take it out on is the server, because you don't get to speak to the kitchen. They're in the kitchen, right? You don't get to talk to those guys. But if you've been there and done that, it's kind of like Bourdain said in his book, there's a certain empathy. I forget how he said it, that you have that stands between the customer, you, and a $25 pork chop or something like that. You understand how it all works. And I pretty much just elaborated on that. 9 out of 10 is really not your server's fault.
Yeah. Well, and the odd part here is enough of them haven't been through the ropes, or, no offense to any restaurant in our area. Restaurant Tyler's got some, but, you go to New Orleans and the average server and the average waiter has the skill set to maybe not get a kitchen through the weeds, but to at the table, like, listen, they're having some challenges. I'm going to bring you some more bread.
That's right. They make a career out of it.
And a lot of them don't know that here, because it's just, and then they do get blamed. And then you have the same problem I do too, which is it's easy to give up when your server's a little not professional or not that great. And
that's right.
You're like, because it quickly goes to, I can cook this at home.
Right.
And if I'm not coming here for the experience, what are we doing?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're just, kind of like I have to go order my food at a counter. I got to pay for my food myself on the tablet thing.
Right.
I joke with the people all the time when they bring me the tablet. I'm like, thumbs down. I'm like, attitude. I'm like, 0%.
The tablet thing reminds me of Jay on Modern Family when he says, I want to feel a menu in my hands.
I didn't like that. The first time I saw one was tail end of COVID, was Georgia Blue, had the QR code thing.
Oh, man.
I turned an old man right away. I'm like, and the girl came over. She's like, you have to order there. And my wife was like, here's the guy. I'm like, can you do less?
Yeah.
She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'd order my drink too. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, so I got to wait 10 minutes, figure out everything I want. And
I paid $18 for a cup of coffee in the Fondren district down in Jackson, and it was deconstructed. So basically, I just had to make my own coffee. They gave me hot water coffee grounds. I
mean, congratulations to them for thinking of it. You know what I mean? Like, what a phenomenal business idea.
And I looked at it. I said to Shannon, I said, what did I just pay for?
I had a real estate closing a couple weeks ago, and like the closer sent me a check, and I closed it, brought it all the way back to the office. The office like deposited it, and then like I was like, something's wrong with this, and they're like, oh, they gave the numbers was like completely wrong.
Yeah.
It was like from a different closing, but written to me, and I'm like, and the closing attorney's like, you didn't look at it at all? I said, listen, in the traditional French style in most New Orleans restaurants, high-end restaurants, you don't look at the tip at the table. You usually don't. Even when you get back, like, you thank everybody as if they gave you a great tip.
Yeah.
And go in the back.
Right.
And I said, that's a skill set, because you have to be gracious like it's happening. And I said, probably a fault when I'm looking at $5,000 checks that I should check.
Yeah, probably so.
But, like, that's the thing. And I don't look at checks unless the waiter's a little rough or inexperienced. I don't look at the check. I hand them the debit card or credit card. I don't look at it. And they're like, don't you want to look it over? And I'm like, if this is your scam, to get me.
Yeah,
I was like, it's probably $68.
Yeah.
I was like, I can kind of get it where it is. So.
Yeah. Agreed.
You've touched on a lot of personal stuff on the column.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the thing that stuck out to me, I think sometime in June, you mentioned it's been maybe 8 or 9 years. How long it's been since you had a drink?
7. Yeah, 7. Yeah.
So, and that's how, you and I've cut way back. That's you and I met in some pretty exotic drinking situations.
You knew me in my heavy drinking. Yeah. I'm not super open about it, meaning I'm not private about it, but I'm not open about it.
Yeah.
So I don't wear it as a badge of honor, but I talk openly with my children about it. If it comes up, it's really weird to be on the other side of not drinking. So, especially when people say to you, why aren't you drinking? Like, for example, in the Grove, right? If I'm like up at, and a lot of folks are real kind, they don't, right, even worry about it or say anything, but you'll get the occasional person, almost like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you drinking? You know,
there's a big thing in my daughter's age group. They're not drinking. Their bars in Oxford are charging higher cover charges because the kids aren't drinking alcohol.
That's right.
At all.
I've heard.
It's a movement. So
I wrote about it, and I didn't write about it writing about it. Meaning,
it wasn't
writing
your
about
identity.
Correct.
And look, even though we're friends, like, I mean, I never perceived it as your identity or anything.
Right.
I don't even think there's some people who are like, you could, what do they say? Your slip is showing. It's affecting your work. It's affecting your kids and all that. It seemed more of a health issue for y'all.
It was that, but for me, it was a problem that went on behind closed doors. So Shannon lived it. I always say I was a really good father, but I wasn't a great husband in my drinking days. And should have just been the best I could at all of it, which I realized I wasn't. I went and got help, came back, and 7 years later, here I am with it. So I kind of just snuck it in a column recently and kind of just eased it in there and then just kept on talking. And that's how I do it in conversation, right? Just blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm sober. If it comes up, if it even comes up. We live in a culture, and you should know, being from New Orleans, right? I mean, you've told me stories of when you could belly up to the bar, you could pretty much have a drink.
I had a job at a bar when I was 13.
Right. Yeah. I remember you talking about that. So, it's one of those things that you're down here, especially in Columbus, there's not a lot to do. But there is, but there isn't, right?
Yeah.
And most people identify that with alcohol, to have fun.
It's a river town. It's part of it.
That's right. So it's been real interesting for me, the whole journey of it, just kind of being on the other end of it. But, man, I was a bad drunk. I thought I was fun, and people thought I was fun. People thought I was funny and fun and so on and so forth. But, when the ones you love don't think it's that fun anymore, that's when it's not fun.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, putting it in the column, it's one of those things that with that column, and I said it one other time, I said, I'm never gonna really pander. I'm going to say what I really think and what I feel and what I believe. Now, I'm not going to do it it's going to be more roses than thorns, right? Yeah. And not to steal that roses, thorns from the Dispatch.
Copyright
thing.
And trademark, Commercial Dispatch, Inc., see dispatch.com, 2009 et al.
I want to feel good and positive, so I try to make other people feel good and positive. But at the same time, I feel like I'm a fraud if I don't let people know who I am in the process of all this, right? So I feel it's important for people to know that, because I've gotten some praise, and people said to me, they've sent me emails and said, "Oh, you've been so helpful. Reading your column has really made me, I go back and I read it, it gives me insight, makes me feel good, so on and so forth." And not to get off topic of that, but it reminds me of one I wrote called, I forget the name of it, but it was basically, "Am I Really That Positive?"
Yeah, because I read that this morning. Yeah.
Shannon and I joked around because I think we were walking one day at the river walk, and I talk about that a lot because that's when we just, solve all the world's problems. And believe it or not, I complain a lot. But I guess I got to get it all out to her, and because she's probably not even listening anyway. But she said one time, "Boy, I wish some people could know this side of you." And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, challenge accepted." So I wrote the column about "Am I Really That Positive?" and basically said, "No, I'm not." But it's kind of like I told you when I sat down before we actually started recording that. And you identify with this because you put yourself in the public light, and I think most people that do, you can be called a fraud real quick if you're not matching what you're saying and doing, right? I mean, you got to be real careful of it. So I forget how I worded it. I think I said I took myself to task by way of my own words, and I need that. So as much as people enjoy reading that column or get things out of it, they have no idea how much I get from it, really reflecting on these things.
Well, it takes a lot to put yourself out there, even if it's something completely innocent or just you're saying something nice about a friend and people attack you. And just to cut off the conversation about alcohol, we've had 5 or 6 great conversations on here on people all over the spectrum who their identity is, "I'm in AA, I'm doing this, I'm getting through it," to, "Hey, I quit drinking and I'm fine." I can relate to it that, my mother died with a 35-year AA chip in her pocket, which is impressive. My stepfather, the chef, died with 35 years worth of AA chips after a time in prison. Like, he went down swinging, but at the end he was fine and at peace with life. Yeah. But that's part of that dynamic. Are you going through, are you getting through it? Are you working? Is it your complete identity? Because I remember talking to them every once in a while, and I'm like, I think y'all are addicted to the meetings.
Well, so yeah. And look, we may be touching on a very controversial thing there, so I'll tread lightly on this one. I think whatever works for anybody in that respect, I've tried, did meetings sometimes, and look, they're good. They work for people, and people really need them. And honestly, I tell people just you got to do what works for you. And I tell people don't ask me because what works for me may not work for you. Yeah. And so yeah, I don't do AA, or I'm not really a part of any of that. So then again, it's not really my identity. Sometimes I feel like when you make something your identity, you lose yourself in the process. Does that make any sense at all? Like if you wake up and go, I am this thing, then who are you really?
Well, if you lean too hard in it as your identity too, and then people in the public will be like, you're that, because you're different people are different to different people. I mean, you're your dad, you're the landscaping guy,
you are, and everybody perceives you different. Man, I read the wackiest thing that just blew my mind. That it said God, I wish I remember how it was worded, but basically, a different version of us exists to everyone we know.
I love the line that each of your kids was raised by different parents.
That's a great one too.
It's stunning, and then you think about it, and you're like, well,
well, talk to your siblings, because everybody's experience is very different.
Yeah, well, your wife battled breast cancer, so did mine. Like, our kids were, one of them was 12, one was 10, one was 8. The 8-year-old remembers part of it, but not with the 12-year-old burden she had to take on.
My older children were older when I drank. Landon, my youngest, was so young, somewhat of I think some of his memories moving forward of me not drinking. And that, I know we've talked a lot on the drinking thing, but hey, it's interesting.
Well, y'all got healthy too at the same time.
That's right.
But, and before the current trend, I don't know how I remember y'all talking about at a Christmas party about eating better food and eating lean and that sort of stuff while remodeling your kitchen at the same time. I don't know how y'all got healthy while I just did a bathroom addition, and I was knee deep in brownies the whole time.
Yeah.
But talk about y'all's health journey, because y'all both got healthy. And this was 5-6 years
ago.
And before it was cool.
I do want to back up before I get into that, though, too, because I wanted to say what I was going to say about Landon, and that was that I make it a point to tell him about when I drank, because I never want him to put me on a pedestal, right? It's unfair. It's unfair to Shannon. It's unfair to the other children for him to think, oh, look at my super great columnist dad, doesn't drink alcohol, so on and so forth. So I remind him, hey, there's a part of me that I wasn't always so great. So don't, I'm not saying don't think I'm great. Of course, think your dad's great, but I'm human too. But yeah, our health journey, it started more, I was pushing like, 285, 265, something like that. And I'm 5'9". So the weight distribution wasn't really working well. Yeah. And it all started with a picture that Colton took of me New Year's Eve. I had, and you'll love this type of ice cream, I had a, what is that, the half pint, I guess, what's the half gallon maybe, a Bluebell, whatever size that is, Mardi Gras king cake ice cream, New Year's Eve. And I had it balanced on my belly like this, and I'm just eating out of that thing, man, just taking it down. And he takes a picture of me, and it's just balanced on my belly, and he takes a picture of me and puts it on Snapchat and puts bringing in the New Year strong. And I was mortified.
From the mouths of babes.
Yeah, right. So from there, I told Shannon, I said, man, something's got to give. And so we started the low carb thing. And low carb was easy for us because we both know how to cook. So that's what I always hear people complain about.
Yeah, people forget.
I can't do it because nothing tastes good or this or that.
Yeah,
but, I learned how to make broccoli taste good, and Brussels sprouts, and I love meat. And so low carb was very easy for us. And believe it or not, it just fell off. The pounds fell off. And then we started walking, and no, we still walk 3 miles every day. Except I just found out I fractured my foot, like, I don't know, 2 months ago, and just been walking around with a fractured foot and didn't know. So, yeah, but it's too late now. It healed itself, I guess. So.
Well, y'all, I think it's some of the same journey that, when did she have cancer? And
ooh, how many years ago
question.
was
18?
that?
18
yeah,
maybe?
it was
before COVID,
I have
right?
to look back. No, it was before COVID.
Yeah,
Yes,
16
yes.
or 17, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, she had breast cancer, and that was actually during my drinking days. So I do remember that.
Well,
and
coming out of that with COVID, and I'm seeing it a little bit from a distance, but we had my wife finished chemo, and then they announced COVID, and I do a wee bit of social stuff, but y'all used to be at night the same level as us out at social stuff.
Yes.
And it's interesting how many families I've seen, and y'all are a sterling example of it, or like when people see me out at night, they're flattered and they're like, holy cow, you're out at night. I'm like, I like being around my kids. And like in the cancer especially, and I'm sure health journey and all, and that time at COVID really stopped us and go like, well, they're leaving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we had to leave at the same, like Allison's at Ole Miss and Katie's at MSMS. Like, we got one kid in our house. You go from 3 kids to one kid. And we said, you know what we said? In 5 minutes, we went from 3 kids to 1 kid.
Yeah.
Like, and so luckily, COVID gave us a time, like, we're going to be with the kids. We're going to be with the kids. I'm not coming to your
That's right.
your dinner, your nighttime event.
And funny, it seems like this whole episode is going to be about drinking, but it's just so many points to be made in it. Funny enough, a lot of me not wanting to go do things, I didn't realize how painfully introverted I was till I stopped drinking. Isn't that crazy? And I didn't realize I was doing it a lot to be able to go and, have a good time, right? And, I mean, I am okay with not really talking. This is the most I'll talk today. Well, and Shannon's like you, man. Shannon's an extrovert. Like, she's gonna speak. We see somebody in Kroger, I'll be talking out of the side of my mouth like, we can just keep walking. We can just keep walking. We don't have to stop. And she's gonna stop. And look, she's a better person than me. So I mean, she is far better person than me. And I just but yeah, back to the kids part. Man, it just goes by so quickly that, you want to soak it all in.
Yeah, that's why I'm glad I got out of when I was running Papa John's, I was running some of the busiest stores in the country, and I was like staying till 2 a.m. I'm like, and once we had the third kid, I'm like, this is not cool anymore. You know what I mean? Like, this can't happen anymore. Yeah. And that's a good reason to get out of food service, and as I say, the most successful people in town in our area, I was like, who's at Huck's on Friday night? It's the Huckabees. John Bean and his son were running during COVID, we're cooking.
Right. That's right.
Doug is at Zachary's. Mr. John, Mr. John's at United Deli.
That's right.
Dodie is occasionally at Country Kitchen. I won't promise any more than that. But they're there. And
Campbell's
Campbell's there all the
Profits,
time.
Yeah.
And some of that's just part of the gig. It's in your. It was in my blood. I mean, Desiree and I. It was when COVID hit. I left Papa John's in 2010. We would go pick up pizzas at Papa John's because they'd give them to us or give us a deal. The owner still help the owner with marketing. If they were in the weeds, we'd go. I'd be in a full suit. She and I would take over the make line. We couldn't watch it happen.
Oh yeah,
just couldn't watch it. It's painful. I'm like, we're coming to help, Yeah. And COVID helped us let go of that. So Well, let's talk about your day job, the landscaping.
Yeah.
So right now you're run your own show, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've had some very generous local contractor, the Weathers family, Gary and Stephen, who've put me in business. And sometimes I wonder what they were thinking. Or maybe I wonder what I'm thinking. I don't know what any of us are thinking. But, so they've are letting me just run it as my own. And how often do you get an offer like that, you know? And have just been tremendously good to me. And it's made it to where I can be more local. So, I was working over in West Point, and we did a lot of work over in Starkville, West Point, and in Columbus. But, I mean, predominantly, I've just been around Columbus since doing this, and it's been so nice because this is where I want to work, I mean, of course, I'll work anywhere in the Golden Triangle, but I like, my stepdad was a infamous landscaper. And to this day, and I've written about that. That was actually one of my first columns was about him. I see trees that he's planted and, jobs that I did with him. And to ride around my hometown and see what we've done and what we're doing is just so rewarding. It's a far cry from cooking, but actually I really, really love it, and I used to hate it. So,
well, that's something I learned, like rehabbing houses, was the difference between that. It made me feel like in high school, restaurant, but I worked at like Kmart loading dirt and worked for a landscaping company moving dirt.
Yeah.
But and then when I kind of got out of food service and would paint a house or do some work, I think landscaping's got the same thing, that you made a difference or accomplished something. It was real tangible, because restaurant business is absolutely thankless.
That's right.
Like, you remember me throwing parties at my house, and then my wife says no sudden movements. We'd have a party with 300 people, everybody would be sitting around the fire pit at the end of the night, and I'd start cleaning up, and people like, we'll help, and my wife's like, don't move, because I can't not. You can't leave the kitchen messy. You can't do it. And it isn't because one of the Chef Johns is going to yell at you. It's just you can't. It's not a party. You got to do it. And the next day you're like, I could come in here and do prep.
It's inherent.
And it's not. And there's no sense of accomplishment, especially in the back of the house. But what are the amount of times somebody really tells you the next day, like, oh, that steak was they don't.
Right.
When you cook it yourself, you get a much better feedback with like, man, that gumbo was great, and I think with landscaping or working on houses or tangible stuff, like, at least you could drive by and be like, hey, I did that. You
can, and you're helping people too. You really are. I mean, there's so many situations where, everybody's got a guy, right? And for me to be able to be that guy for people, that they can reach me on my cell phone and say, hey, this irrigation line's broken, or this, and drop what we're doing and come out as quickly as possible. It feels so good to be there for people like that. And, at the same time, I kind of nerd out on the stuff, man. I just find it interesting. So much so that I went over to Mississippi State and took the test to get my horticulturist license, because I found it that interesting that I didn't just want to say I did this, but I wanted to put a stamp on this thing and say, hey, I'm this guy, this is what I do.
You're a grown-up insured company.
Like I'm the real deal.
People think that doesn't matter about the professional side. I've had I like to say, when I recommend people, I said, do you want phone book, which is they're going to show up, they're going to do the work, they're licensed, insured, they know what they're doing. I said, do you want 9 a.m. to Budweiser or 9 a.m. to meth? And 9 a.m. to Budweiser, like, you got to go watch him. He may buy his own stuff. You might have to buy it. And 9 a.m. to meth is the guy with the roller who you get him for a half day, but you got to watch him,
Right.
And people don't understand that if the 9 a.m. to Budweiser guy plants the $600 tree in the wrong soil and doesn't sell you irrigation for it, that you got to water it and you miss all that sort of stuff, and then all of a sudden you got a dead $600 tree and you can't find him.
That's you hit the nail on that.
Yeah, and I know the Dispatch did a pretty big piece on it. Maybe,
oh boy, was that a year and a half ago? But what's funny is, now working with them, right? Yeah, because I was really coming at Zach there after that came to print. I didn't feel like I got the fair shake in that one, Zach. But I went and made a pretty big deal about it. Because it was important to me. It was just one of those. And look, I don't want to ruffle feathers with any of the other guys in town, so I'm not going to really elaborate too much on the licensing part of it. But I guess the reason, I just kind of saw it like, hey, Colin's going to go sell houses. He's got his real estate license. Well, you want to sell them? Maybe you should go get your license too, right?
Yeah, I feel like we should. If you're going to enforce the rules, enforce them all.
And if you don't like it, then wait for the rules to change or change the rules. But until then, why have them if we're not going to go by them? And that look, it made me a bad guy in a lot of people's eyes. Which I found strange. I found it strange.
Well, you weren't calling trying to get people in trouble. Just for the reference, there was an issue in the article in Dispatch. It was over a year ago, I think, maybe 18 months ago. And it was really shining a light on what most people didn't know, that that landscapers are supposed to be licensed.
They are.
There's a million different reasons for it. A lot of it came up through like litigation of, like I'm saying, plants are dying.
That's right.
And like, how do you go after them if it's just your friend who was doing a literal?
Well, it's to protect
I have a very
the
good
customer.
friend who's a shade tree landscaper. You know?
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing. He's just not big enough to own a company and like that. But like, it's the same reason, like, you know, an electrician should be not only licensed but in business.
Well, and I felt I was real clear on my position on that. You know, I wasn't trying to say, hey, you know, if my son Landon and his buddies wanted to go start a little business and plant 5 or 6 azaleas for the little old lady around the corner, that's no big deal. But when you get into the bigger part of things, you know, and you're swimming with the big fish out there, I think it's very, very important that you've got the education to back what you're doing, you know.
Well, the biggest example I saw of this, it wasn't landscaping, it was paving. But the city of Columbus took the lowest bid 2 rounds ago on paving. Group out of Meridian came and did it. And they did stuff wrong. Like, wrong.
Right.
And they had, like, the company had a license, but they essentially were really subbing it out to a couple buddies, literally with asphalt trucks and stuff.
Right.
It wasn't Falcon, it wasn't Burns Dirt. And they did things wrong. They did sidewalk intersections wrong, didn't tear up some of the pavement, did some of the curbs wrong. And you just assume, well, they're bidding on this, they got the license. But, you know, and I don't know if there was anything the city could have done to do research about it. But you just kind of assume that they were, like you said, swimming in the same pool so that they had the licensure and everything going on.
Well,
so.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, they don't have the means over at the Department of Agriculture to really enforce this. You know, they'll send an email and occasionally, I think, threaten to give you a fine. But it wouldn't be like if you were a general contractor and you go and try to build this mega structure over here without a license, because they're going to catch you quick and crack down on you. And then my not to harp on any of this, but my biggest argument too was when you go to apply for your LLC, you know, or however you want to file your business, you can just call up, pay your money, and say, "Hey, I'm Colin Krieger Landscaping," and they just issue it to you. Yeah. So then when you go to Google for a landscaper, well, Colin Krieger may pop right up, and you're like, "Hey, this guy seems legit, right?"
He's got a website. And
so then maybe I should call and say, "Hey, I want to open Clay Bowen Law Firm." Right? LLC.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, well, we got to check with the Mississippi Bar Association to make sure you're an attorney. So just, in my opinion, what's fair is fair, right? I mean, you can't talk to one of these hairdressers in town. See how they like it.
I was speaking to cosmetologists where they have 1,500 hours of stuff they got to get. And I'm like, I'm a realtor. You know, it's like an 80-hour class or whatever. It's interesting, you know, usually sometimes it's old money people who put these barriers in place. So like to be an appraiser for houses, you essentially have to shadow somebody else for 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
So there are nobody who wants to do it for 2 years to make no money and then.
Hey, tattoos. I mean, they take that seriously.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, talk to my guy, big shout out to Tattooed Voodoo, Alan Taylor. You know, they take it very seriously. You know, it's dealing with blood and skin. And
I'm not always a big fan of government regulation, but I'm a fan of government consistency.
Yeah.
Like a good example here.
That's a good way to put that. That's a really good way to put that.
A good example is everybody's favorite retiree, Kenny Weigel from the city. He was a city inspector. Was always looking for nice guy, like just wanted to help you get through the thing. So I heard a talk from Nathan Katona, who's his replacement, young guy, licensed contractor in the county now, but he's the new code enforcement guy.
I've met him, yeah.
Yeah, and Nathan's like, he goes, I don't want to cause problems for anybody because we're going to follow the rules. And he's like, we've got a reporting system, we've got this. And he goes, it seems horrible when, like, I'm picking on somebody because we can't catch everybody. He's like, I don't want to catch anybody.
Yeah.
He's like, I want it because your property values go up if your neighbor keeps their grass cut, if the trees are cut back, if the window gets fixed in a certain amount of time.
Well, I mean, where did we get in society that everybody just kind of does what they want to little, and maybe that's just my perception, but to little consequence, you know? Yeah. It's kind of where we are right now, you know? I mean, from lying to, you know, just blatant lies.
Yeah, I think of
politicians do it.
I think of things happening where, like, well, he's toast, and I think it kind of of the last 10 years, the most recent PC thing was Al Franken, the comedian, made an inappropriate gesture on an airplane. Like, he was the center, and he went like honk honk like that. Somebody didn't touch him, didn't do anything, and he got canned to where we are today, where people are like, yeah, okay, like they're literally saying it as part of their normal life in politics, and I'm like, I just thought you'd get destroyed for that.
Yeah. And people just kind of talk their way. They're like, that.
I always refer to it as the conservative politician thing that used to happen like 20 years ago. Like, they'd get in trouble, and they're like, now they just like, oh, whatever, it's not a big deal. You're lying. That's not true. And they're like, no, we all saw it. And you're like, no, you're lying. But they used to be like, I'm going to talk to my minister. I'm going to pray with my wife. And
that's right.
I'm sorry what I did to that young lady. I'm going to be gone for a month. And they'd come back, and you'd be like, all right, well, at least he's sincere. You know? To where now they're like, that's not true. And it's going to get worse with AI. You know,
it is.
Coming up. I did my almost 50-year-old not skilled AI stuff. It took me 3 seconds to make a video of a rhesus monkey climbing over my logo.
Yeah, right. Everybody's been doing that.
And I was just
one.
like, I did it like within a minute of the thing happening. I'm like, this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I think is going to happen with AI stuff, and I harp on it a lot, I think in a year from now, it'll be so indiscernible what's real and what's not that I think a lot of the internet for people go back to being amusing like it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And that right now we all feel the pressure like we have to do business on it.
Right.
So we still have to do stuff in real life, and you're doing a tangible thing in real life.
Yeah.
I am too. I say I have to be the real life realtor while simultaneously learning all this stuff. And what I always love to say is we're in Columbus, Mississippi, and it took us 10 years to get a Starbucks. Like,
right.
it's going to take a little longer for AI everything to happen.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. That's funny. You know, I've had people ask me, do I use Chat GPT to write my column? I'm like, are you kidding me? Come on.
It's not that hard.
Yeah.
I can still tell when people do it. The majority of realtors are doing it now. And all they're doing is throwing in extra adjectives.
Well, you know, I won't even use the suggested word. Now I'll use predictive because it a common sentence, or like, how you doing? It's going to finish that one and speeds up my writing. But there's also this, like, this word would sound better. I turn that off because I don't want to lose my authenticity.
There's the Mark Twain theory where you should never use the word very or something. You know what I mean? Like, it should be your voice, which will stand out more than ever. Like, my daughter Allison's at Ole Miss, and her teachers up there are just raving about her because they taught her how to write essays at MSMS. Right. And she's up there, and other kids are clearly just using Chat.
And
they're probably next year will be end-to-end stuff, like you're going to have to write stuff in class so we can watch you and monitor.
You know, funny story, about 4 columns in, I remember reaching out to, it was then Abigail, who was the editor, and saying, you got any advice for me, anything I could do, you know, because I've never done this. I'm open to anything. And the best thing she could have told me was, she said, perhaps try to use your authentic voice versus elevated word choice. I was looking up. I was doing the old, right. Yeah. So I was saying, this sounds better than that. This is going to make me sound really intelligent. And finally, it was all but just like, dude, dial it back a notch, you know, like, if you don't speak that way, don't write that way.
Michael Ferris Smith was in town. I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah.
So Mike was talking about his.
I was there.
Okay, yeah. So he's talking about his column, and he read a part, and I mentioned this to him when I sold this house. Realtor plug there. When I sold this house 8 years ago or 10 years ago, like, there's a part in there, and I've seen this in his writing before. Like, if I was writing something, I would never write it this way. But he read a column, and he's like, they took the very sharp stairs into the very dark basement. And I would never repeat very in a thing. And he's done it before. Like, he's used it was a great day, or something fairly simple, but repeated it within the same paragraph, or an adjective.
Well, like Larry Brown did.
Yeah. And you're like,
thing.
and he's like, but that's how you would talk. It's how it is. And the closer you can get, like, talk about context. Like what you said about the landscaping thing doesn't come across, no matter when you get interviewed.
Yeah.
In an article, it's going to be off.
Right.
You know what I mean? I tell people all the time when they go on WCBI, where I don't officially work or anything, I'm like, just talk. Like, if you have an agenda, you're not going to get through.
No, and I thought that coming into this today, don't you know? Just say what's, and it's easy with you because we've known each other forever. I actually wrote a piece for Oxford Magazine, which comes out, which was pretty honored to do, a step up kind of from where I'm doing it now. No offense, Dispatch. I didn't mean it like a step up. A different thing.
It's a geographical step up.
It's a geographical. So Oxford Magazine, I had sent them. at one point, I just thought, I want to see how far I can go with any of this. So I sent them some samples of my column and just asked them to read it. And they just said, yeah, maybe we'll get back to you. And then a new editor or whoever was doing Oxford Magazine, publisher possibly, took over, and she emailed me and said, hey, we'd like you to maybe write about a restaurant up here called The Balcony, and do a piece on it for us. We saw you were on Top Chef. We saw you're a writer. Would you do it? I said, I'd love to. And it comes out around Thanksgiving. There's a plug there. So I got to reading their magazine to see what the other people wrote. Biggest mistake in the world, right? Because not saying they all sounded the same, but they were all kind of following, in my opinion, a certain kind of pattern, in a sense, to make you like Oxford. And
Everything's sunny in the South is what I call it. Yeah.
Correct. And I tried to write it like that. And I sat and I read it, and it was absolute garbage. So then I wrote a different one, and I wrote it almost how I speak in my column, very conversation piece, just wrote how I write. And I sent it to the publisher. And I told her, I said, this may not be what you're looking for, because I read your other pieces and I don't sound anything like any of that. She didn't respond right away, and I was like, oh, blew that opportunity. And then she read it, she responded back, and she said, this was a treat to read. This was fantastic. I'm going to send it to the editor. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, that's pretty cool. So got something coming out in Oxford Magazine, which that has a pretty large audience, so I'm excited about that.
I like to repeat, Gary Vaynerchuk says, trust is on the rise because transparency is on the rise, and people are looking for authenticity. So you think you see it. There's so many produced influencer. I get accused of like, oh, everything you post is just positive stuff. I'm like, everybody else has got the bad stuff covered. And I said, and the impact of that is like, we had a bad FedEx delivery guy who kept putting my package further and further away from the door. And so I posted about it. Mm-hmm. Like the head of FedEx of the state of Mississippi called me. He's like, I don't know who in the Ferris Bueller you are, because I'm tired of getting calls about your packages. I'm like, well, I posted something this morning, and I was like, it's probably the only negative thing I've posted like in 3 years. And he's like, can you take it down? I promise they will put it in there. And I'm like, well, that's what you want to be realistic. People are sometimes disarmed when they talk to me in person, and I'm like, I'm very pragmatic about politics. I'm like, he's my friend, but he could have done better. And you're right. Zach all the time, I'm like, that was a great article. And Zach's like, Zach Player at the Dispatch, and he's like, stares at me curiously, like, but it was about your friend. I'm like, I'm friends with all of them. Like, I just want everything to be better here. And I was like, I want everything to be better at my house with my wife and kids, and then in my neighborhood, and then in Columbus, and then in the Golden Triangle, then in Mississippi, and now Oxford, because my daughter's up there. That's right. And that's all you want. And I think people, because I think that's why podcasts are doing so well, and probably will continue to do so well. Not locally, they're still, all of them are just where they are, but like the big ones are big because it's authentic. A lot of them are the comedians just sitting there joking around with each other without some massive agenda, and so much context is lost. And the more I think you can write, the things that get the most attention in the Dispatcher, generally speaking, are the columns.
That's what I was told. And so
it's Slim Smith.
Actually, I took a shot at what's his name, and I don't even think he realized it. He probably doesn't read my column. Tom, whatever his last name is, the guy down in Key West, Florida, or wherever he is. Yeah. He writes about the movie sets and whatnot. And man, he just ripped into millennials and Gen Zs on one of his. He called them like Generation Duh or something like that. And I mean, really, just let them have it. And that's my kids and your kids' generations, right? And I took great offense to it, because I feel like you have a responsibility where, if you're being on your segment you do on WCBI, if it's this podcast, if it's any form where you're reaching out to the public and it's received attention and people are listening and they like it, you have a responsibility. You can share your opinion, but can you share your opinion without just being a complete jerk? Yeah. Because I get it. Even like Anthony Bourdain in his books, he wasn't really being a jerk. He was just telling you how it was. But I felt this column he wrote was really just picking on kids. And so I responded back with a column the next week, and really just came back over the top at him, just, saying, hey, why don't you get to know some of these kids instead of just seeing them? And
we all do it, but whenever you generalize, you marginalize. So whenever you say Mississippi's a red state, well, 41% of the people aren't. And nobody is really all red or all blue or all whatever.
Yeah.
We all have all these subtle differences, especially on a local level. Like I always say, the city council isn't picking that. And I'd hate to say, I know baby boomers who are completely different than other baby boomers. So every time you do that, I think people are being lazy when they do that. When they're like, oh, millennials are all like this. I'm like, my kids aren't the same.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they all have good work ethic, but like other than that, like they're all not that similar.
No, not at all. And I promise you, we were deemed lazy, and I promise you the boomers generation was probably deemed lazy when they were our age. It's a tale as old as time. And to sit from your perch of having a place to say it but not give many people a chance to respond is not fair, in my opinion. So I took offense to it.
Well, that's why I've always liked the dispatches. As long as somebody signs their name, they take the letters to the editor and they put them in there. And like I said, some people try to make their letters to the editor a column, but it's usually, like I said, it's usually just throwing rocks.
Well, Shannon told me, she said, I forget what I said one time, I wrote one, and she said, if you're not careful, Peter's going to move you over to the opinion section and not the lifestyles, she said, because you get pretty opinionated. And it's hard not to be honest, because once you know you have a voice. See, at first I thought no one's reading this, but once I realized people were and they were responding and telling me they were, then I realized, wait, people are actually listening.
Well, it's hard to tell, just like we were talking about numbers on this podcast. Like, and I've had the best example I got was like in the middle of COVID, a wood truck carrying lumber flipped over on Main Street in front of the Main Street. And I went out there and did like a 40-second video of like make dad jokes. Like, it's a lumbering decision to pick up the wood. And, would you be wearing like that? And it got like 8 likes and 300 views. I had like 40 people over the next 3 months like, that video was crazy.
Right.
And I'm like, but it didn't. You couldn't tell, and things happen in the real world. And so there are people who are like, I don't read every column in the paper, but like now I'm looking at yours and now I'm looking at this. And people absorb that stuff and pay attention to it. And you sometimes have no idea. Yeah. Because like the social media, sometimes I have posts that are incredibly impactful and don't have any likes. And you're like, oh,
you don't know, Believe it or not, and I wish I had the courage to do anything with it. I wrote a book before I did any of this. And it's written. It's 12 chapters. It starts from growing up in Columbus to Top Chef to all the way to where I am now. But I'm scared to even do anything with it. I won't even let anyone edit it. Isn't that crazy?
It's never been easier to self-publish something.
But but isn't that wild that I will what I'm getting at is that I'll put myself out there, like, come to this podcast or write in the Dispatch. And it's okay. For some reason, I don't feel so vulnerable. But something about that book.
We all have limiting beliefs. Like, your first column had to be nerve-wracking. And
it was. And now I read it now and I look back and I'm like, oh, that's garbage. I can't believe I wrote
how
like
quick
that.
Stuff like that turns into a job. Like, I remember it's been a little over 2 years. And I'm only on CBI like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
They do run a lot of commercials for it. Thank you, WCBI. But, like, I remember talking to Keely. By the way, Keely, who does it, is a producer, runs 3 shows, does all this stuff. She just turned 25 years old.
Wow.
So besides impressive. Me making dad jokes that don't land on her, she's doing all this other work, and she's like, it becomes work real quick. Like, it's cool being on TV or the column, but like sometimes you're like.
Well, Bernie came to me at the book fair and asked me if I was enjoying it. And I said, I am. And he said, when he wrote his Partial to Home, which I always enjoyed Bernie's writing. I really did. I actually go back and I read some of his stuff sometimes for inspiration because he just had such a way with words. And he said it almost becomes work, doesn't it? And I said, yeah. And he said that was kind of his thing, was that it kind of became this thing he had to do. And I want to say, well, Bernie, you on the paper, you could be in it anytime you wanted. I feel the pressure that if I skip 1 week, somebody's going to fill my spot and I'll lose my column, right? So
yeah, for me, this whole podcast thing was really just, he asked me, Josh Gillis, we're going to date this podcast, but his podcast comes out today, an interview with him. And I said, I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan. I said, number one, I want to have some video content, audio content out here for when there's less of it than you think of me.
Yeah.
Like, because I don't do selfies on my Facebook. People are like, I really don't. And I do videos for Remax, but not for real life. And I said, I'm going out to lunch and having these conversations every week.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have some record of this people in the town, because the first week I pulled in here 20 years and 6 weeks ago, I went to the River Hill Chevron, and a truck full of barking dogs pulled up, and Roger Larson came out. And then Jeff Smith and a very young Corky Smith got out of the next car in their seersucker suits, and I got back to my house, and I'm like, no, they don't sell beer on Sunday, and I'm wondering where the hell we just landed.
You know, talking about record, not to interrupt you there, but I want to make sure not to miss this point. Not just the people of this town, but think about your family moving forward, right? Like you, Colin, moving forward, right? This will exist, right? Your stuff on WCBI. So we don't have these things of our loved ones, right? Before the smartphone, we have old VHS
there's like 20
videos,
pictures,
right?
There's 20 photos.
But I mean, your grandkids or your grandkids will be able to pull it up and go and hear your voice and watch. And I say that about my column. You know, Shannon, bless her heart, she takes every single one, laminates them, and she'll put the weekly one on the fridge like I'm a 5-year-old who brought home his painting. But I think it's kind of a time capsule in a way that we create through media of any sort, that especially for our loved ones, that I hope one day Landon or Colton or Reagan can look back and flip through all the things I wrote. And that's why I try to tell stories too, so they can go, oh, wow. You know, it's
well, it takes courage to share, and I talk about like Ryan Munson and other people that you got to be unreasonable to do it. So
you do.
Well, we could sit here and talk for 2 hours, but we've talked for 1 hour.
Yeah,
so.
Well, name of my business. I didn't even say that.
Yeah, I know. So go ahead and, go ahead and plug the business away, and how to reach you on the column with your angry notes. Yeah,
BW Landscapes, and you can find us at our Facebook page for that if you want to, reach out to us for any of your landscaping needs. And as far as the column, you can find me I actually created a Facebook page called Everyday Clay, because that's the name of the column. I actually got Shannon to share it because Shannon has like 4,000 friends, all due to her tamales, I think. So I said, I need you.
That's the best underground business going on.
I need you to share my Everyday Clay page so people will see my, and believe it or not, like when she shared it, 2 days later, I had like 1,000 people on it. But so the column comes out every weekend in the lifestyle section, and I just kind of really just say what I'm thinking most of the time. So, but I'll probably write about this. So doing this right here, right now.
Well, we could have done this for 3 hours, and I'll probably have you back on.
Well, look, that's when it's good content, right?
Yeah.
When time's up, and personally, I don't want it to be over. I could sit here and just talk all day.
Yeah.
So,
we'll have to come back and do it. And like I said, that's part of it. You never know where you're going to end up in a long conversation.
That's right.
Of important things. And I think people will, as far as supporting your page, people love stuff that's local. They're going to grab it. I think you could do a reality TV show on 20 different people in town and follow them all day long, and people would watch that. People are just starving for local video.
Well, when I did Top Chef, I was Columbus's hero until it aired. Yeah. And then it was like, wah, wah. Everybody wanted to be my friend, and then it was like, ooh.
You were still on it again. That took courage just to do it. And it wasn't like today where there's a reality show every 10 minutes.
That's right. It
was one of the original 8 big reality shows.
Yeah, it was. It sure was. So.
All right. Well, thanks, Clay Bowen, for coming on. If you need some landscaping done, or if you'd like to file a compliment with the Commercial Dispatch, it's pimes@cdispatch.com. And,
I love it.
And we'll pressure them to have you on their podcast. Thanks for coming in, man.
All right. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705, or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.